Her name is Zimko, meaning true beauty. She lives in a small hut on the outskirts of Tanziba with her mother. Her father died the night she was given birth to. The village people see her as a cursed child. A child who took her father to live, they whisper every time she passes by. It has been years of growing in segregation, sidelined from major activities the maidens of Tanziba enjoyed. She hardly sets foot in the palace for any village event. Now she is 19, a forbidden beauty that is sought after by men but never perfect enough to be taken home. Down at their small hut, Zimko looks at her aging mother who is fanning the flames which a pot of soup sat on. She gave a big smile. She wonders if her mother had ever thought of her the same way the people of Tanziba did. If the rumors about her being a cursed child have ever affected her mother, Zimko couldn't say. But she knew her mother had been doing a wonderful job at concealing her emotions. The woman whom she grew up to call her mother has been the only genuine and constant thing in her life. The only one who looks at her with much affection and care. Not once as she makes her question her identity. When she was younger, her mother would sit beside her on their wooden cot, and she would sing melodiously to her while she sleeps. At 10, the night she first discovered the shocking revelation about herself, she woke up crying and blurting out about the revelation to her mother. That night, her mother reaffirms her love. She loved her still regardless of how many identities she unravels. Her mother's love made Zimko feel like she could conquer anything in the world. Her sweet words lower Zimko's anxiety when she discovers her revelation was as real as the morning sun in Tanziba. Her mother, who is known to the world as Frintha, is a beautiful black woman, curvy in all the right places. She was and is still a beauty even in her late 50s. Zimko calls her Mama M, meaning mother. Zimko is familiar with the story surrounding her birth the same way she was familiar with the road that led to their only farmland. Frintha and Prim, her mother and father, were married for 20 years without a child. Rumors have it that they did something terrible to warrant such a curse. Prim was working for the king as his most trusted guard. He was a trusted confidant of King Otenga, the Zuzul VII of Tanziba. When Prim got attracted to the young worker in the palace and decided to marry her, the king supported their union. Then Prim and Frintha lived in the hut given to them in the palace as husband and wife, both serving the king and queen in their capacity. Prim and Frintha were not the only couples without a child. The king and queen were. Once, the queen took in and she miscarried. Frintha knew the pain so well. These days when the queen felt incompetent and unworthy, Frintha was by her side, serving and muttering words of encouragement. Advised by his kinsmen and special chiefs to consider a second wife, King Otenga contemplated the decision for many nights. It wasn't beyond him, in fact, he could marry as many wives as he pleased. But the queen was the love of his life. The one he fell in love with, he chose her. She was never chosen by his parents. Betraying her was like a burning coal in his chest. It hurt to even think of it. When the queen lost yet another child without a chance of coming into the world, hope withered like a rose in summer. However, the hope was rekindled when a prophecy came through the diviner. "Patience, my child," these were the words of the gods. A child who is destined to stay and survive the womb was promised, the one who will put an end to the fruitlessness of the king and queen. One chosen by the gods to rule Tanziba. As promised by the gods, the child came. Surprisingly, the baby didn't come alone. The child brought along another miracle. Around the time the queen took in, Frintha discovered a seed was also growing inside of her. It was a miracle for both families. Both women went around with swollen stomachs. The excitement united them. Frintha enjoyed serving the queen even with her baby bubbling inside her. Their delivery date, according to the midwife, fell on the same day. The night everything changed for both families. The delivery night was both of horror and joy. Total horror for Zimko's family, and blissful for the royal family. Zimko is aware of this story because she was told by her mother. She is forbidden by her mother to set foot in the palace. After Zimko's birth and Prim's death, Frintha left the palace with her baby back to the abandoned hut on the outskirts of Tanziba that was owned by Prim. The small hut was nothing like the one she occupied in the palace with her husband. Frintha still preferred it. The highest point of betrayal and injustice she witnessed that night left her shocked and angered beyond words. She couldn't survive a night at the palace, so she ran. To save their baby, to save herself. Her mother never told her what it was she saw that night that made her leave the palace, and Zimko never tried persuading her. Whatever it was, she believed her mother made the right decision then. Though there were nights she found her mother crying. That night, she didn't choose to burden her with questions. She only enveloped her with an embrace. Her hands wrapped around her mama with her head resting on her bosom. She gives her mother hope, even though fear does creep in. What if whatever took him is coming back for her? Zimko wonders if it has a connection with her revelations. The first night she had won about a boy she knew so well dying. She awoke trembling. She shared the frightening dream with her mother, and she assured her that it was just a dream. But it wasn't. It was a revelation. The child she saw in her dreams died the same day, and Zimko trembled for days with guilt and fear. That was when she knew she wasn't just an ordinary girl. She could see things about people and they would come to pass. She didn't have to lie down to dream about these things. A year ago, she saw a young maiden and it came to her. She saw a dark figure looming over the girl. Out of fear, she tried talking to the girl about the seeming evil that was awaiting her. But the girl had just laughed, dismissing her as weird. Frintha warned her. She couldn't speak to anyone in the village about her gift of seeing things. When the girl died from an unknown poisoning, Zimko still felt the guilt. She feels the weight of her gift and her inability to save the people. On her mother's command, Zimko avoided anything to do with the palace. She only hears news and whispers about the royal house when she goes to the market to sell farm produce. With no friends and many relations, Zimko has been a loner, keeping to herself, having less interaction with the villagers except her mother. She couldn't properly relay the revelation when she sees one. She would be termed a witch. The villagers have already seen her as her mother as weird beings who lived only by themselves. One day, Zimko was walking down the bush path back from the market. The sun had already kissed the earth goodbye and had started its journey back to the east. But Zimko could still see people clearly as she strode the path she was familiar with. It wasn't completely dark. It was that evening that she noticed the air changing around her. She paused, listened, and continued. The feeling came back, with so much force like tides about to consume her. She was familiar with the feeling now, but that evening was strange and powerful. Who is it going to be? She wondered, as she made the left turn to the short path that led to their hut. She collided with him. It was her first time ever seeing him alone. The crowned prince of Tanziba, the man whose birth is connected with hers. Prince Nanda paused in his tracks when he noticed her, her skin glowing with the evening sun. Her eyes are as pure and calm as the sea, and he sees sparks of color in them. Her plump lips caught his attention too as his heart picked up at a faster rate. This maiden looks like she has just been sent down from heaven by the Creator himself. In Tanziba, fair skin was rare, but she embodies it with such simplicity and radiant beauty. Who was this girl? His heart couldn't stop beating fast as Zimko muttered words of greetings to him. He has been caught staring, completely lost as his gaze roamed her body. He stopped her with a smile and a response to her greetings. Prince Nanda, who has escaped the palace for his evening walk, a ritual he enjoys doing alone. He was on his way through the secluded path when he met Zimko. That evening, he learnt her name, where she stays, and about her mother. That night, the prince couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned helplessly on his bed as his mind kept replaying the event of the evening. His conversation with Zimko. Preoccupied with the thought of her, Prince Nanda knew that wasn't an ordinary penetration of his mind. No maiden has ever made him feel that way, not even Nyasha, who is his betrothed. The prince has never felt a natural pull to Nyasha. It has been more of a duty and commitment to his parents and to Tanziba, the community he will be ruling over. Zimko didn't just have an interaction with the prince. She also saw a shocking and frightening revelation. That evening when she met him, the revelation came as shadows. At night when she lay to sleep, she saw it as clear as a day. A shining throne, she sat. The prince stood behind him as a shadow with no crown. She woke up trembling, her hands and feet sweating, afraid to tell her mother. Zimko's heart carried the burden of an unknown and unclear revelation. She quietly mutters prayers to the gods to keep the prince safe from all harm. It has been 3 days since he crossed paths with the beautiful maiden Zimko. Yet, Prince Nanda hasn't slept a night without dreaming of her. He has seen her in different shades of beauty, and in each shade, she was with him. Her smile, wide and genuine. Those brown eyes stared at him with so much admiration. The prince contemplated asking his father about the maiden but decided against it. However, he made it a point of duty to go strolling the path they met every day with the hope of meeting her again. Luck found him on his 3rd day of waiting on the path. He caught Zimko once again and they had a chat. That night, he slept with the biggest smile on his face as he replayed his time with Zimko. She tried hard to avoid him, yet she felt this strange closeness whenever she was with him. It has now become a daily ritual, the prince waiting for her in the busy paths she takes each day back to their house. She was convinced when she saw him the 3rd day that it wasn't a coincidence but a deliberate effort. It scares her. Every time her heart beats in excitement at the sight of him. She feels guilty every night when she dreams of him yet can't tell him. The prince was slowly becoming her friend. She also felt guilty about not telling her mother. The feelings Zimko was experiencing were ones she knew so well. Not through direct experience but from her mother. The way the prince looks at her, it makes her stomach dance in jubilation. She blushes whenever he holds her hand, and the electric current travels down her body, causing the most exciting feeling. Every evening spent with him, Zimko feels the pull, the wants in the prince's eyes. She stops herself whenever she finds herself wanting to bury her head on his broad chest and allow him to hold her until she becomes one with his body. These wants scare her. The realization that she and the prince haven't seen beyond the bushy paths scares her the most. Why would she ever dream of being with the prince when she knew it was practically impossible? She has heard rumors that the prince is betrothed to a maiden, the daughter of a high chief in their village. Zimko's heart hurts with the realization that the revelation she saw about the prince hasn't gone completely. The last day they spoke, she gave herself to him and warned him not to come back. She loves him but can't have him even though it hurts so much. For 5 days, Zimko stayed away from visiting the market. She got away with the excuse of being sick. Frintha let her rest even though the elder woman suspected something she couldn't tell. Staying away is what the prince couldn't do. He had come back for 5 days without the sight of Zimko. Every day without her, he felt the urge to go straight to their hut, but she had pleaded with him right from day one not to come looking for her at their hut. On the 6th day, the prince couldn't hold it. He went straight to Zimko's hut. At the small garden beside the hut, he saw an elderly woman, someone he presumed to be Zimko's mother. The shock oozing through him when the woman locked eyes with him kept him glued to a spot, unable to move, and holding eyes with the woman in front of him. Why is the woman so familiar even when it was his first time meeting her? Frintha came out of her garden to meet the stranger in front of her compound. Well, not a stranger. She knows him, the baby she had taken care of when he was a fetus. The grown man in front of her looked troubled, and it scared her. She knew something wasn't right when Zimko's started behaving strangely. Seeing the prince in their hut requesting for her just confirmed her suspicions. Zimko refused to see the prince and she couldn't help. However, she had begged the prince not to return. She knows a lot of things can go wrong when his parents, especially his mother, know about his affairs with Zimko. The prince left Zimko's hut devastated and hurt. She refused to see him and he can't blame her. What is it that he wants? What's the pull that was drawing him to Zimko even though he was betrothed to another maiden? Nanda holds no answers to the questions in his heart, but he, however, was determined to give it a try. He couldn't just give up on Zimko. The next day, the prince went to his mother to discuss Zimko with her. The queen's demeanor changes immediately at the realization of who the girl was. She ordered him to stay away from Zimko. According to his mother, Zimko is bad news, a cursed child, and shouldn't be seen anywhere near the prince. Days passed as Zimko moved through them like a ghost. She hasn't been herself. It took everything in her to shut out the prince. Every night she dreams about him, the terrifying nightmare that hasn't gone away right from the very first day she met him. Another terrifying thing is the changes in her body. She recalled the last time she met the prince. Their desires were uncontrollable. There at the bush, she had let him take her. Her innocence, virginity were offered to him like a sacrifice. She ran from him that same day, and now she couldn't comprehend what was brewing inside of her. Her mother confirmed it. She is pregnant. She is carrying a child for the prince. How could it be, and what has she done? News spread throughout Tanziba, from one household to the palace. Zimko's pregnancy out of wedlock was the topic of discussion. When the prince heard about it, he came straight to their hut and demanded answers. He got his answers. He was responsible for it. The queen couldn't fold her hands and watch the matter get out of hand. She knew what had to be done. She sent her men to go get Zimko and her mother. There at the palace in front of the king, they were brought. Frintha dreaded coming back to the palace where her old wounds came back like it was yesterday. Facing the king and the queen was a thing she had successfully avoided for years. But here she was once again, accused of yet another thing she wasn't guilty of. Denying the pregnancy wasn't the prince, is what Zimko couldn't do. She had said the truth, but instead of the truth setting her and her mother free, it brought them a place in the palace cell. The king ordered Zimko and her mother to be locked up, shutting out the prince's cries and acceptance of the pregnancy. They were in the dark room where they were kept. Zimko could feel a strange aura in the palace. The call that kept pulling her, the strangest force that knocked her into a trance. She saw it again, this time the prince in tears, begging and crying in shadow behind the throne where she sat with the crown on her head. She woke up trembling, with visible fear that caused her hands to shake. She used her mother's embrace while telling her the revelation for the first time since the day she started seeing it. Her mother listened but didn't say a word. "There are some secrets that will always find us when it is time," was the only word her mother muttered after some minutes. They lay on the cold floor, hand in hand, each with their thoughts. The diviner's visit to the palace wasn't ordinary. The last time the old man came to the palace was with a good prophecy for the royal house. Today he came with a warning. The diviner announced that calamity was about to befall the royal house if the guilty one didn't confess to their crimes. The spirit of death was fighting and couldn't be stopped. Prince Nanda is angry and confused. Whatever the diviner said, he couldn't comprehend. That night, he pleaded with his father to set Zimko and her mother free. What if the warning was about them? He confessed to sleeping with Zimko and took responsibility for getting her pregnant. King Otenga yielded. He promised to release them the next morning. However, he didn't promise the prince freedom to be with her. The queen mother is aware of exactly what the diviner said. She knew what transpired years ago, the night when Nanda and Zimko were born. In fact, she killed the only person who was aware of that secret. Now, she wonders if Frintha knew about it. Out of desperation to silence Frintha to seal her shame and secret, she went to the palace cell in the middle of the night after the discussion with the king. She wouldn't let Frintha come out alive tomorrow morning. Zimko couldn't sleep when she noticed the figure. The queen was in front of them with a knife about to stab her mother. She rose immediately and knocked her out. The queen wrestled with her, awakening Frintha, who began screaming at the top of her voice. Along with the palace guards who came running is Prince Nanda. He was shocked to see her bruised mother and Zimko wrestling for the knife. He went for his mother and dragged her out of the cell. With the chaos of the night came morning. Zimko, her mother Frintha, King Otenga, Prince Nanda, the diviner, the queen mother, and the council of elders sat at the palace. The matter that had called for an urgent meeting was tabled before the house. There Frintha told everyone how the queen tried to murder her last night. The queen denied the accusation. She accused Zimko of being a witch, the force that drew her to the cell. The diviner couldn't bear the argument. He placed before both women an oath of truth. Whoever was lying would die instantly after taking the oath. Frintha stood forward and swore by the oath, but the queen mother hesitated. Whispers grew louder as the queen broke down in tears. Zimko drew close to her mother, confused about the queen's sudden outburst. She knew something wasn't right. Immediately, she is reminded of her revelation but remains mute. She watched the queen sob for some minutes before she began speaking. Frintha knew something wasn't right the night her husband died. Hearing the queen confess to the conspiracy and the killing of Prim the night their child was born hurt her to the last fiber of her being. Prim was accused of raping the queen the night before her contraction, the accusation that leads to his murder. The queen also confessed to switching their babies the night they were born. The confession had Zimko and Prince Nanda's mouths wide open in horror. Afraid of birthing a girl who might not be accepted as the king of Tanziba, the queen had ordered the baby to be switched with Frintha's baby, who was a boy. The only person who knew about her secret, the midwife, was murdered that night as well. Zimko couldn't believe the only person she knew all her life wasn't her biological mother, and her biological mother hated her right from birth. The truth broke her. The queen suddenly gave up the ghost after confession. She looked at her father, the king. Frintha held her hands, afraid of letting her go as the prince stomped out of the room. Frintha cried all night as they returned to their hut after the heavy revelation made by the queen. It suddenly made sense to her, the familiar feeling when the prince came to their hut that night. It hurt her that she was separated from her child for so many years. If the queen hadn't died out of shame, she would have killed her, to compensate for the loss of her husband and her son. However, she never regretted having Zimko. She feels great pity for the poor girl with a terrible mother. She tried her best to comfort her. King Otenga ordered the body of his wife, the queen, to be taken to the evil forest. It was still a tradition and a way of burying people who had committed great abominations in the land. The deception of the queen hurt him greatly. He feels guilty for always believing her and granting her request without proper investigations. To compensate for years of missing out on his child's life, the king sent a special order to Zimko and Frintha, asking them to come stay at the palace. Prince Nanda spent days grieving and locking himself from the world. But he can't run forever. After some days, he came back alive and ready to face the world. Most importantly for Zimko and his unborn child, he couldn't care less about not being a prince. He knew one truth. He loves Zimko and he is ready to support and love her no matter her identity. Zimko and Frintha accepted the king's offer after days of contemplation. At the palace, they were welcomed with a great feast. The king announced her as the Princess of Tanziba and Nanda as her husband. It gave her so much joy that Nanda was willing to do it with her. As Princess Zimko or just Zimko, all she ever cared about was him. Having Nanda as hers to love and to be with was her ultimate win. Though she couldn't ignore the prophecy that came with her birth. She was a chosen child, one born as a blessing to her people. Now, she could use her gift of revelation to save the people of Tanziba.